Welcome everybody to today's webinar, Accelerating Validation with Credibility and Confidence with Loftware and Compliance Group. And before we get started with the content, a few housekeeping notes. This webinar will be about 35 to 45 minutes. And if you have questions, you can use the Q&A panel in your webinar console. We are recording this webinar, so attendees are in listen-only mode. You'll be able to take this with you after we're done. And finally, you'll receive a copy of the recording after the webinar within the email that you registered with. And today we're going to be covering from an agenda standpoint, who is Loftware and Compliance Group, why our partnership matters and how we support life sciences organizations, what are the barriers to validation and how these are unlocked. We have some use case scenarios and we have some Q&A. And as we get started, I'd like to welcome today's speakers, Johnson Hoey, who is Senior Manager of Validation at Compliance Group, and David DeLuca, who is Director of Strategic Consulting from Compliance Group. Johnson has 25 years of experience in the life sciences industry with expertise in validation, computer system validation, computerized system assurance, compliant labeling design, automation, risk management, etc. Johnson's done it all. He's passionate about ensuring patient safety, product quality, data integrity, and compliance with industry standards and regulations. And his mastery of compliance spans very wide, very deep in regulatory environments, guidelines, and best practices, including all the acronyms, FDA, EU, GS1, ISO, labeling of drug and medical products. And David here with us as well is an experienced leader in manufacturing, R&D, and systems validation and compliance with roles spanning across quality, research and development, and operations. His diverse background has given him a deep understanding of different challenges, opportunities, and best practices across medical device, pharmaceutical, life sciences value stream. He's a passionate advocate for lean and efficient processes, and David's worked closely with numerous life sciences companies to modernize quality systems and assisting clients in regulated industry to streamline operations, stay compliant, and achieve goals more effectively. I'm Carter Johnson. I'm Vice President of Global Alliances at Loftware, and I'm going to be your host for today. Now, as we get into the content of the presentation, just a quick overview of Loftware. We're the global leader in enterprise labeling and artwork management solutions. As a global company, we treat global customers in most all industries. If a company makes something, they have to label it. So we're particularly strong though in regulatory environments, which is a big part of the content that we talk today. We've got over 2,000 customers around the world. We have strategic partnerships with all the master data vendors that our customers have within their ecosystem. So SAP, Oracle, Infor, etc. We also have the endpoint connectivity to the devices that are physically outputting the content. So Zebra and Sato and TSC Printronix and a number of the equipment manufacturers. We have an entire driver development organization. We have more than 10,000 drivers within our library that are free for our customers to download and utilize. And our customers print more than 51 billion labels a year. So that's a lot of output that's happening on a regular basis. But what we're going to talk now is we're going to get into specifically the life sciences industry. And then the next slide is a pretty good logo section of pretty much all the major players within this industry. And when we talk through this presentation about life science or medical device or pharma, we're all talking about the industry as a whole, the regulated industry that's in the industry of life sciences. And on my next slide, I'll quickly talk about, Loftware is not just about stickers on boxes. We actually have a complete end-to-end solution for life sciences, from everything from workflow management, workflow control, and artwork to the actual physical outputting. And as we go through the case study and some of the information in here, you'll see that a holistic view of all of the requirements that are necessary for physically putting identification on end products in the life sciences industry is super complicated. It's obviously highly regulated. And Loftware has evolved our platform over 40 years of development to be the leading solution that's in here and in this for our customers. So before I head over to David and Johnson on our next slide, I'll talk about what I really want to cover here is that our partnership matters because global regulations and standards and more changing regulatory environments across all the acronyms like Johnson's so familiar with, FDA, EMA, MHRA, Health Canada, PMA, TGA, etc. And when we're talking about labeling accuracy or post-market issues, data integrity, serialization, our partnership helps us build a smarter, faster, and fully compliant labeling ecosystem. So it helps our customers consolidate, because that's a big part of what's out there, simplify, and modernize their labeling infrastructure. And that gives us gives our customers too compliance intelligence and labeling innovation. There's two barriers we talk about preventing from making this happen. There's the validation barrier and there's the value barrier. And the value barrier is a big one that gives us comfort with legacy processes and unaware of the value that really comes from adopting a modern platform. Johnson's going to talk about that a lot more in his case study. But what we see within our customer base is a lot of the label infrastructure already exists there, but it's a lot of times there's either a lot of systems within an enterprise, so you don't have a single record of the truth or a single point of control, or it's legacy and outdated systems, on-premise systems perhaps. Not that on-premise is necessarily a bad thing, but if they've been a set it and forget it mode, you're getting up on end of life for a lot of these products, and end of support even more importantly. So pay attention to the life side of that. But the barrier, that validation value barrier that's keeping people from moving, is because I'm too afraid to touch this infrastructure. And we're going to walk through why this is important and how we can make this easy.
Awesome. Thank you, Carter. Yeah. So as Carter alluded to, right, CG is all in the space of validation, right? And breaking down, okay, how can we accelerate and get back to the core and the root of what validation is all about? So from a computer software assurance perspective, CG founded the FDA industry CSA team back in 2016 and has been leading the transformation to a risk-based validation approach. You saw Carter go through all the different medical device and pharmaceutical clients that they have. We share a lot of those same clients, so we understand that there's a big move to digital transformation, and labeling is certainly in the center of it. And that's why we're so passionate to be partnering with Loftware and coming up with a partnership and a solution to help accelerate your implementation and leveling up of your labeling architecture. So how does CG deliver value? Well, we really have four arms within our services organization. So we have specialized staffing. So we have a large pool of experienced quality and compliance resources that we pull from and that we use and deploy at our clients. We also have a consulting arm, so we have a team of full-time employees that are all focused again on the validation, the design control, risk management, manufacturing space, and many labeling SMEs, right, that understand best practices when it comes to business process transformation. We also have technology solutions. So to accelerate the validation, accelerate data migration, we've developed AI domain-specific tools that help add to the existing solutions that our customers, whether it's Loftware or other software organizations, can use to, again, accelerate the implementation and help make validation easier. And then finally, we have OCM kind of embedded in all of these services, right? So we understand that anytime you introduce a new technology, there's going to be disruption. There's going to be this move from understanding what the change is to adopting the change long-term and sustaining the change. So CG has all of their resources certified in organizational change management and a large understanding of what that entails. All right, so yeah, as Carter alluded to earlier, the validation barrier is one of the biggest hurdles to implementing new technology across the board, right? But especially when it comes to digital labeling solutions. So back in 2016, the FDA met with the industry and they looked at all the different technologies that other industries were implementing, whether that's automotive, semiconductor, et cetera. And they were seeing that there was a lot of automation and data-centric tools and digital transformation that was happening. However, when they looked at the medical device and pharmaceutical industry, they saw a lot of hesitancy to adopt those tools. So what that meeting was meant to do is come together as an industry and identify what are the barriers to innovation, right? And what the FDA, they were anticipating that there was going to be challenges that weren't related to validation, but what they found out is that the industry kept saying that, hey, non-product software validation, CSV, is taking forever and costing us millions to implement new technologies, to go through these technology changes. So what the FDA did is the FDA said, okay, let's go back to the heart of what validation is all about, and make sure that what we're trying to do is be more lean, be more risk-based, and be more productive in our validation efforts. So the terminology that came out of that, as a marketing kind of vehicle to move this forward, was computer software assurance, CSA. So, when you hear CSV versus CSA, a lot of the times we're talking about the same thing. But when we break it down in this perspective, what we're talking about really is the old school software validation approaches versus the new school software assurance approaches. So again, one of the biggest hurdles to our industry adopting these tools is the validation costs and really what that's all about. And so what I'm going to break down here is what are the differences between CSV and CSA. So for one, the focus in CSA, the new school approach, is to be quality oriented and to focus on risk-based approach to validation and critical thinking, not just documentation. So what we've found over the years is that we're creating many SDLC documents that weren't adding value just because we thought that's what we needed to do to be compliant, retesting everything. And what CSA is moving towards is, hey, let's look at the high process risk items and features, functions, and operations, and the things that are configured and customized for your organization. Let's test those things and let's leverage as much as we can from the vendor. From a risk assessment perspective, CSA, again, is getting down to that feature, function, operation level, and it really is the crux of the validation effort, where CSV, again, we did it, but it wasn't adding any value, and it was really just to check a box. From an adaptability perspective, CSV is very linear, it's rigid, and it's not really scalable across the organization, where CSA is taking into account agile approaches to software development, and it's very iterative, right? So continuous improvement is at the center and at the heart of CSA. I talked about the documentation not being value-driven, being more check of the box, being excessive and redundant, retesting everything, where CSA, again, is streamlined, again, focused on how do we validate this system? How do we ensure that we have confidence that it's working as intended? And, using as much evidence that we can from what our vendors have done, what our internal IT folks have done, and using that towards the validation effort. From a technology perspective, CSA is looking to be digital, and make it easy to digitalize, be more data centric in its approach, where CSV, again, is old school document focused. And then finally, on the testing approach, which I'll talk a little bit about as we move on, and that we've done in our use case, is that it's on the CSV side, it's heavily scripted and manual. So there might be hundreds of pages of test scripts to test something that's already been tested, right? Versus CSA is introducing, new types of testing like experience-based testing, looking at day in the life scenarios, all different types of exploratory, error guessing types of unscripted testing, to allow the business users to decide, okay, how do we prove that this functionality can be met? And how do we prove that, that there's not going to be a defect in this workflow or this particular process? So I won't go on to harp on this too much, but this is just kind of CG's leadership by the numbers. So again, I mentioned that we founded the FDA industry CSA team. We worked with ISP GAMP to co-author and do thought leadership on a lot of different GPGs. And we're involved in GAMP 5 2nd edition. And newly this year, a digital validation GPG that came out that I think is important to review. And if that is an area your organization is going into, feel free to review that. But overall, right, with our experience in moving many clients from CSV to CSA, what we found is on average, right, when we do the OCM metrics on our transformations, a 50% average reduction in overall validation lifecycle time. So it could be, again, anywhere from 40 to 60, but on average, what we're seeing is people are able to cut off half the time it takes to validate something, but not compromise any of the quality, and actually increase the quality when it comes to metrics like defects found post go live or pre go live rather, amount of requirements actually tested, right? All those things are increase, but the overall lifecycle time, because we're getting away from just documenting everything and creating endless amounts of test scripts, we're seeing a good chunk. I like to say it's the Thanos snap a validation, right? Make 50% of the validation time disappear. So that's a nerd joke if you guys don't know that one. But all right.
So as we move into our case study here, labeling challenges in the life sciences industry is obvious to anyone who's probably listening to this because it is a target audience. And I think that one of the main label challenges in the life sciences industry is that labeling is often treated as an afterthought to an enterprise deployment. A company gets their MES or their PLM and their ERP, and they say, oh, we've got to put stickers on boxes. And then by that point, it's a little bit too late because you've got customer-specific requirements, you've got local and regional requirements, even change of languages. You need to have validated environments, obviously. One of the high concepts that we're talking about here, electronic delivery IFUs, regulatory requirements, workflows and pieces like that. And so deciding what you're going to do for labeling after you have already talked about an enterprise architecture, it's too late. And so a lot of companies that we deal with are in this environment now. They either have multiple systems, as I talked about before, so they don't have a single version of what they're looking at, or they have older systems because they've been delayed in validating. And so I think Johnson's going to take us through a case study that has all these concepts and issues all kind of wrapped up into one that we were able together as partners help solve for our customers. So Johnson, take it away.
Thank you, Carter. I appreciate y'all. We're going to go right into our exciting use case. We had a mutual client in the life sciences. We're going to go through that use case. So we're going to give you a brief description of the client, the profile, the project's problem statement. And then we're going to go through the selection process, why the client chose Loftware, as well as why they chose Compliance Group, CG. We're going to look at CG's value-added services that were provided. We're also going to look very closely at the synergy and the partnership that we have in action. And lastly, we will highlight the takeaways from the project, as well as the benefits. So we'll go to the next slide. So our client is a well-established global medical device company with a market capitalization of over 20 billion, thousands of products in the world. So they are a big player in medical devices, and also because of all those products, they have a massive amount of labeling that is required. So not only are labels individually important, now we're speaking about massive volumes of labels that are important. So collectively, it's a big compliance responsibility. So they've got to be subject to all the regulations from the regulatory governing bodies. Next slide. Problem statement. Our client had been using an existing labeling software system that they had deemed outdated. And what I mean by that is it was an on-premise solution that didn't have strong fundamentals as far as label design, out of the box functionality. So key thing was that they didn't have solid integration with other enterprise systems, often requiring custom software. So the client was then forced to transfer data manually across systems, and that resulted in a high likelihood or risk for human error. Also, the time that it took for that manual labor and the costs associated with that became a burden to the client. But most importantly, the change management of so many labels was crippling due to the existing labeling software's limitations, and again, poor out-of-the-box functionality. So with the next slide, we'll go. to why the client selected Loftware. So Loftware is a global leader in label management solutions, and they have very powerful tools and functionality in all their labeling software. In particular, the cloud offering, which is Loftware Enterprises Spectrum. They have the building blocks for very powerful and flexible label design with template, having multi-layer functionality, and also the ease of use as far as the interface, as well as mapping data from source systems of truth to the target label object. Also, the out-of-box functionality, there was very solid label artwork workflows, and also version control with role-based security to take that artwork and design it, and then approve it, and yet another party publish that into the production environment. So demonstration that the label workflow is under control, as well as its versions. And again, I had mentioned the advantage of the integrations with the common enterprise systems. Also, Loftware is 21 CFR Part 11, Annex 11 compliant, that highlighting electronic security, electronic records, electronic signatures, audit trails, and role-based access. Also, the Loftware SaaS offering, the advantage is the clear advantage is that the infrastructure and the maintenance is not the responsibility of the client, so they don't have to bear any of that overhead and burden, and becomes and is the responsibility of Loftware. I would like to add that Loftware is also ISO 9000 certified, so they have a robust quality management system, and also they are SOC 2 Type 2 certified, and so their information systems and their practices are compliant with maintaining data security, data privacy, data confidentiality, processing integrity, and availability. We'll go to the next slide. So here is the client's selection of CG. CG, as David mentioned, co-founders of CSA, and we have an arsenal of subject matter experts in the areas of validation, labeling compliance, for all of life sciences and medical devices. We just to name a few, the governing bodies, obviously FDA with Drug Supply Chain Security Act, serialization, track and trace, and also UDI, medical devices, unique device identifier labeling. We also have subject matter expertise in MDR, which is the EU, again, with UDI labeling. Then we also have an expertise in ISO standards, in particular, the symbology that is standard globally for medical device labeling. And lastly, compliance for GS1, Global Standards 1 organization, to ensure that the elements in a label, in particular the barcodes, are compliant. This would be for linear barcodes, for data matrix, or we're looking at how the data is encoded with application identifiers. We're looking at the human readable interpretations, the HRI, which is the representation of what's encoded in the barcode. And so things of that nature, very important. And lastly, we also have expertise in labeling design best practices. So we work with the client, and we offered our best practices and expertise in labeling design, which were well taken by the client. We'll see the fruits of that later. And lastly, we have a multitude of successful end-to-end projects where we've delivered complete validations for Loftware and other SaaS solutions. Next slide. So this is just a quick dashboard of the CG value-added services provided. We performed a gap analysis for the client. We looked at their as-is labeling, and we critiqued it in a manner that would be addressed later on, and there'll be another slide to discuss that. But the next thing is we also had shared our industry best practices for labeling design. Also, we critiqued and ensured the labels were compliant with 21 CFR Part 11 and Annex 11, and we demonstrated that compliance for the specific client use case. We also offer the modernized risk-based framework approach, as David was saying, CSA, and we're looking at modernized ways to assess periodic releases. So for release management, it's very key. And again, we are looking to focus on that which affects patient safety, product quality, and data integrity. And then we also applied critical thinking, which is a major component of CSA throughout the project, provided a complete set of software development lifecycle documents and CSA deliverables. And I just wanted to add that, as David had mentioned, it's not about the volume. So I use this acronym. It's called VAV, and VAV stands for value added validation, and it is not volume added validation. So I just wanted to kind of put that in there. Next slide, please. So here is the partnership that we have in action. So CG and Loftware, we had an engaged team deploy a very powerful label design tool. And the design tool was that powerful template with the multi-layer functionality. And also the design approach was to organize and sort all the labels of the same size and background layout. Okay, I call this, it's all about size and location, location, and location. So those were grouped to one template. So one template would have the same label objects that we populated with data coming from the various sources of truth or enterprise systems. So basically, we're looking at leveraging the powerful and flexible structure of the Loftware template and its out-of-the-box tools to streamline label change management, as well as just group everything and consolidate everything instead of having individual labels, hundreds and thousands of labels all over. We're looking more at 100 templates or so or less. The other portion of this partnership is we achieved a streamlined validation where we validated the process and not the individual labels or the templates. So the main benefit of that is, if there are changes of values to the data, they still are subject to change management, but it's just a master data change that you update in one cell. Let's just say for one data point, you update it in one cell of a source of truth, and you're done, because the template and the validation is maintained, is not changing whatsoever. So that, as mentioned before, will lift the crippling and debilitating change management off of the client, has and did lift it off of the client, and can do so for other prospective clients. Next slide. So just want to highlight the key takeaways of this project and its benefits. So we have enhanced compliance of the labels because of that gap assessment that we did on the as-is labels. And then we addressed some of the more immediate high-risk items, again, patient safety, product quality, and data integrity in this project. And also, the client had a list of other gaps that had lesser risk and lesser priority, and they included that as a plan to deploy those remaining gaps in future phases. And that's just great to have when an auditor or regulator comes to a life science company and says, let me see your labels. Well, you have these issues here. What are you doing to address it, or what have you done to address it? And so now you have a plan. So that'll surely keep them off your back as far as observation or citation. The next thing is there's significant decrease in the volume of change controls, due again to we're handling the data changes as master data changes, and again, handled by change management, but not nearly as burdensome as changing hundreds and thousands of labels impacted by the same common change. So we're looking at change management for data changes only as master data changes and not the process that was validated. That's a key streamline approach to validation. Next, we eliminate the human error associated with the manual data transfer of the existing system. And we have improved central management of symbols and glyphs in a central location in the cloud. The other benefit clearly was the effective data mapping of the label templates to the respective sources of truth from the respective enterprise systems. And while doing that, it also enhanced data integrity and maintained the sources of truth as far as the data. That's a wrap on that slide. And thank you very much.
That's super, Johnson. I appreciate it, and very, very interesting on the case study. I think we've got a little bit of time left. We've got a number of questions that have come in. I'm going to take a couple of them here. I got one, Johnson. I want to direct one towards you, and another one for you, David. While this is still on your mind, Johnson, with the case study, and the problem statement. And the problem statement for this project could be this problem statement that we talk about all the time. It's why we have a value proposition, right? The existing software was older, it was outdated. You were having manual transfer of data between systems. I like the way that you described crippling change management. So with that though, because that seems common, we see that with all our customers, but yet they still don't want to move. What was the pre-project state of the case study that prompted the customer to, and I'll just say it like I think it is, endure such a project, right? What was the break point that finally decided the customer to move off of what they've been doing, trying to make it work, and go into a more modern architecture that's now been validated? Is there a break point there?
Absolutely, Carter. There is the instance of a particular data object that was common to all the labels. It was the company's address. It had changed, and because of the reluctancy to go with a more modern and powerful system as far as a labeling system, the existing software again kind of catty-cornered and hindered the client from being able to use more flexible and powerful things like putting the address in a database. Okay, and what I mean by that is the client ended up hard coding the address in over 1,000 labels, and so from a regulatory standpoint, the address change of the life of the medical device or life sciences company is huge. And so because it was hard coded, there was just a heartbreak, pain, sweat, tears, blood, yelling, other things I probably are not at liberty to speak of. But the key takeaway is that Loftware presented the tools that were necessary to completely mitigate that from happening again. And CG came in and validated accordingly.
So they had a patch, right? They patched it, made it work, but then they hit a wall. And I think our advice is don't get to that point in your enterprise, right? Start thinking now about how to move towards a modern environment. I got one more then, and David, I'm going to throw this one over to you. You spoke a good bit about CSV and CSA in the introduction. I think that is really, really critical. How has CSA helped, life sciences, medical device, pharmaceutical companies speed up validation, and why is this maybe leaning towards kind of a wave of modernization in this industry when it comes to labeling?
Yeah. So, there's a number of ways that it speeds it up, but I think two takeaways, right? That like anybody that's listening to this, that's a medical device or pharmaceutical or life sciences customer right now could take with them without really overhauling any of their processes. One is leveraging vendors, right? So when it comes to, for example, Loftware, right? Go through a supplier qualification process. You know that Loftware has, if they're ISO 9001 and SOC 2, ISO 27001 certified, they have the SDLC and QMS practices that you would expect that your company would have when it comes to if they develop their own software. They have that capability, right? From a SOC 2 27001 perspective, from an information security, they have those controls in place to make sure that your data is secure and all those practices are being kept. So when it comes to qualifying them, right, review the documentation package that was created for their out-of-the-box functionality of Loftware, and don't retest any of that when it comes to your own CSA process, right? You know that they have good practices to documenting requirements, developing the software, testing the software. Take that and own it, right, and incorporate it as part of your assurance approach. The second thing, right, that can give immediate value is, again, getting away from the long test scripting for every single requirement that's configured or customized, right? So take a risk-based approach, and for the things that maybe aren't high process risk, or even the things that are high process risk, only focus on capturing objective evidence that's required, right? So what does that mean? The CSA guidance kind of lays it out that objective evidence doesn't need to be a screenshot, right? It could be a data record. It could be the only time that you really need screenshots for objective evidence is if you can't recreate that record to an auditor, right? It's a point in time type of situation. So leverage unscripted types of testing, right? Shift left, develop your process earlier, and truly train the business users that are going to be executing the testing, and then have them go and test it. Don't spend the time writing how they're going to test it, right? Like you're going to go take, your grandmother and have her go and test the system, right? These people understand Loftware. They understand how to use it. They understand the intended use, and then have them uncuff them and allow them to actually try to find the defects and issues in the system. So by doing that, by doing both of those things, right, from a test execution or a test drafting and test execution standpoint, you'll save a ton of time while adding a ton of value. And from a redoing testing that's already done, you're going to be able to leverage Loftware's out of the box, documentation.
That's super.
So
a couple of
those
great
are
questions.
two values right away that you don't need to do much in your own SOPs and processes and get a lot of value.
Right. Super. Thank you. Those are a couple of great questions. There's several more that we have. I think that's most of what we have for time today, but I want to thank Johnson and David, both of you, for your time and your extensive knowledge on this topic. If our listeners have further questions, our contact details is listed here on the screen now. You'll also receive post-webinar emails being sent, which will provide a copy of the recording, and also within that, our contact details. So with that, we'll conclude our webinar. Thanks everyone for participating, and I hope everyone has a compliant rest of your week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Connor. Thanks, Johnson.